I regret leaving my baby to run away with the love of my life and accidentally giving away my rights while hammered. I'm devastated that his dad refuses to let me see him. My son was born when both me and his father were 16 because we didn't know anything about intimacy education. My parents wanted me to get an abortion, but I begged my parents to let me keep the baby because I felt so attached as it grew inside me. The father also suggested an abortion but said he'll step up if I decided to keep it. I was glad that I still had his support no matter what. Our parents did not allow us to live together, so we each had a week with the baby. After 2 years of this arrangement, we were finally about to get an apartment and start school at the local university. My cousin was in college already and she invited me to a frat party. That's where I met Dylan and I instantly fell in love. The problem was that I was dating the father of my baby, but Dylan made me feel alive. I hadn't felt alive in so long and my boyfriend could never make me feel this way, no matter how hard he tried. He asked for my number that night and we talked all the time. He always flirted with me, asked me out on dates, and he knew about my boyfriend. Eventually, I had an affair with him and that only made my boring life exciting. It was the thrill of being caught by my boyfriend and the love I felt for Dylan that kept me going. Luckily, my boyfriend was too busy with AP testing and graduation to notice. Our baby was still getting taken care of, but I noticed myself forgetting about my responsibilities because of Dylan. He then wanted to move to Chicago and asked me to go with him, along with my child. I was more than happy to, except for the fact I couldn't take my son away from his father. We had an agreement that worked for years and doing this would mess up everything. Then, Dylan suggested something I couldn't turn down, going to Chicago by myself. I was set on my decision and only told my cousin, who was upset that I would be doing this to my son and boyfriend. I made her promise not to tell anyone, though. It seemed like for once I could do something I wanted to do that didn't revolve around dirty diapers and breastfeeding. It was my one chance of freedom and I had to take it. So, I texted my boyfriend that I was too young to be a mother, that I was in love with someone else, and asked that he not contact me anymore. I didn't even let him reply before I blocked him on everything. From that moment, I was going to live a brand new life with Dylan. I had to tell my parents what I was doing because they would ask questions eventually, and they also didn't support my plans, but I was doing this for me and that's all that mattered. Nothing they could say would stop me. I enrolled in a college when I got to Chicago and the first 2 years were a massive blur. I thought I would be free, but I was so depressed. If it wasn't for the constant partying and drinking I wouldn't have made it. During this time, a man appeared at my door with papers for me to sign, and me being too wasted, I didn't even bother reading it. I honestly didn't care about anything during this time, and my mental health suffered so bad. This was worse than raising a kid at 16 years old. Luckily, Dylan stood by me through my darkest times and promised me he would always be around to help me. I was still so in love with this man, and we got married a year after I graduated. I got out of that depressing period of my life and got a job as a high school art teacher. I'm actually happy now and don't need to drink every day to cope with my life. And thank God too, because I got pregnant with Dylan's baby. After a long talk, we decided it was time to get my son to come with us. I wasted too many years without him and now he needed to come back to his mom. I stalked my ex-boyfriend's Facebook page and saw he also moved to Chicago. Through a mutual friend I got his address. I was so prepared to see my son. And how big he had gotten, and then take him to live with me. I was picturing our future together and it was a good one. But when I went over there and knocked on the door, my ex-boyfriend was really cold to me. He asked me what I wanted in the most aggressive tone possible. I explained that I wanted to see my son and he said no. Apparently, I had given up my rights as his mom and I'm not welcomed in his life. I called BS because I would never do such a thing. Then, I remembered that dreaded document I signed while wasted and realized it was a notary public stating I was giving up my rights. He even had the documents to show me as proof. He said that because I signed, I couldn't see him. I called him a crappy person and an a-hole before breaking down and begging to let me adopt my son so that I can have rights again. He didn't even say anything, he just shut the door in my face. I have no idea what to do now and all I want is to see my son.